Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. And wow, I sit before you this morning that I'm recording this, a very humbled woman, and what a crazy, beautiful week this has been. If you missed my video I put up on, I think it went up on Tuesday, I can't remember, I think so, announcing what happened to me last week. I know in my last weekly reading vlog I was a bit vague about what was happening, but I actually lost my job a week ago Thursday, so it's been about like 8-9 days or whatever since it happened, and I had a couple options before me. I could immediately try to find another position. I could take some time off and then try to find another position, or I could try full-time content creating, and that's the option that I'm going to be trying to do. Obviously, there still is the possibility that I will do this for the summer and then find another position, but if you would like to go check out that video to see what's going to be happening, you can. I'm going to be launching a Patreon. I'm going to be trying to write for the first time in a long time. There's a lot of things I'm going to be attempting to do, and I'm being able to do that because of all of you guys and the overwhelming rush of love. I don't know like another way to say that, between people sending me books. I've been getting books in the mail all week. There hasn't been a single day when someone hasn't sent me something kind, when someone hasn't reached out to say, can I send you a book? And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, like getting a book from someone, from a stranger, from a friend, is just about the best thing ever. And especially since I'm going to try to be very careful which books I'm buying physically now for the next how long, until I know what my budget's going to be. People have been kindly spoiling me and doing that. I've started a Ko-Fi, and well, I've always had a PayPal. I didn't just start a PayPal, which are now in my link tree and will be down below. People asking me to do that so they can, because I've been sending, on Instagram, I've been showing my office, which I went to different coffee shops this week just to help me feel like I was working. But I can't spend too much time on all of that. You can check out that video that I will link up above, which was my like announcement video. The Patreon will be launching on May 1st. And I just decided the other day that I'm gonna do like a live show like party for that. Maybe see if I have some guests stop by, or maybe do some giveaways or something. So that's going to launch next Sunday at probably 2 p.m. Central. I wanted to pick as close to the time of the day where as most people, like the most people around the world, would be able to show up, because there will be a couple tiers that have limited spots, and I've already had quite a few people interested in those, which makes me excited. So anyway, that is all what's coming. So that being said, like this was the first week of working for myself. I mean, it definitely didn't feel like work, but it also was like I had businessy stuff that I was doing. You know, I'm trying to make sure I have a good, smart budget going forward, make sure that I'm able to do those things. Luckily, so there's 2, 3, 4 trips that I had planned for this summer, and most of them were already paid for, so I didn't feel guilty about keeping them. And the others were, because 3 of them will involve flying somewhere. 2 of them are actually like provided by someone else, because I don't want to tell you what's happening, but that. And then 1 of them I had already paid for it, so I don't feel guilty that I'm doing it, because that money was already out of my account before this happened. So there's just so many things going on, and I actually foresee the fact that being free this summer to dive into this could be one of the best things I ever do. Whether or not long-term content creating is what I'm able to do, or whether this is just a season, I'm able to do that because of you guys. So I want to get into what I read this week, which I still ended up squeaking in my normal amount, but it actually was harder to read than I thought. You know, I was so excited. I was like, you'll have all this time. Well, I've been doing a lot of planning and prepping and things where I should have been listening to audiobooks, but I wasn't. So I'm going to have to schedule time in the future. I know I'll have to schedule time where I'm like, okay, that was the work hours. Now you get to read just like any other day. But with the Patreon going to be opening, and I go into more detail in this in the video. Like I said, I'm sorry to redux it for the people who have now heard this from me 3 or 4 times. But I have channel memberships as well, which many of you know, we just passed over 100 channel members this week, which just made me so happy, because the way I explain it in the video is that channel memberships will still be a thing as well, because obviously, you know, there's different levels, what anyone can afford, how anyone can support you, and channel memberships are always like early access to my content. So they're early access, they're helping me vote on certain things that I'm doing. They, you know, we have a Discord where we, you know, can chat or share recommendations whenever, and you get like priority response to like comments and stuff like that. And then the only thing that's exclusive is for Fated Friends. I have a monthly like chat, but otherwise everything is just like early access. Whereas the Patreon that's launching, because I really was like, there really needs to be a separation between them so that I can justify having 2 forms of like, you know, support. I just, in my head, I know many of you are like, we'd support you anywhere. And like, I appreciate that, but I also for myself have to have a plan. So Patreon is going to be additional things. Like there's going to be buddy reads where someone can win the book that we buddy read. There's going to be annotated books where people can pay to have me annotate either one of my favorites for them or a book they want me to read. And there's going to be exclusive videos for them. So that's going to be kind of the difference between channel memberships and Patreon. So, okay, enough of that. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is that many of you just didn't want to wait for the Patreon, and I have 12 new channel members this week. And I'm not going to turn into a watering pot because I have a stuffy nose and it will just go downhill if we do that. But the amount of warmth and kindness from people just rushing in for me, and not even just monetarily, I absolutely appreciate that. Obviously, I want to be able to do this long term, and so I need that. But the love of people saying, we're so happy you're doing this, we're so excited to see what you're doing. People saying, you've brought books back into my life, you've given me recommendations that I love, like that just melts me into this little pile of goo. Because I'm a words of affirmation person. So people telling me those things just, it's a lot. So we have to go through these quick. I've already spent 8 minutes on this. I'm so sorry to redux, but I'm just so overwhelmed by the love that I have to gush about it. And I will have left a timestamp for people to skip that part. But we have 12 new channel members. So let's kind of go through it by level and then we'll move along. I'm going to have to find a new way to list like members at the end of the video because I've got so many now. So we have a new sassy supporter, Lily Romaine Shank. We have a new dedicated diva, Laura Yamin. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, but Laura is from the What to Read Next podcast, which I'll actually be on in the coming weeks. So I'm very excited about that. So thank you, Laura. That's so kind. And we have 2 new romantic renegades, which is Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl. Cheyenne has been very sweet to me this last week. I love getting to know her and I'm very excited. She has a newer channel, so make sure you check that out. And then Leticia Nicoretta, and I'm so sorry, I'm sure that has a beautiful way to pronounce it, and I, in my very Midwestern way, just butcher everything. And then we have a good amount of Fated Friends. So we have Stacy, we have Lise Loves Books, Shannon M, Jilly Reader, Larissa M, Mary Ann Quigley, who also has a channel, by the way. You should check hers out. Laura Elman and KM are all new Fated Friends. So just thank you. Thank you so much. Any doubt that I had, which it still exists, like I'm still a bit terrified because we haven't really launched anything. I don't know if Patreon plus this is going to be enough. I don't know that yet, but the love has been so overwhelming that I'm more encouraged than ever that I made the right choice to start with. So yeah. Okay, the first 10 minutes were all just kind of an update and all that fun stuff. Also, I want to show, look at my cool new earrings. And I'm cleaning out one of the things I'm doing this week is some spring cleaning. And I was cleaning out my closet and I found like a ton of cool, like this old grandpa sweater that I had, and just a bunch of fun stuff. So it was cool when it feels like you went shopping in your closet, but really you just dug stuff out. So anyway, okay, let us get started. I read 12 books this week. I had a lot of arcs that I had to get through, and honestly, I'm glad that I did, because that's one of the things that like kept me reading this week. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on in my brain. There's a lot of planning I'm trying to do. I was going to try to take the rest of April off, but that didn't happen because I'm trying to prepare everything. So the first book that I finished was Scarred by Emily McIntire. This book, I feel a bit bad for it because I started this book on the day that I was fired. So I have a bit of like traumatic memories associated with it at this point. But I was listening to the audiobook in the morning, and then the afternoon is when I got let go. And so I ended up finishing this on Sunday though last week, and the audiobook was very interesting. It had some narrators I hadn't heard before. The audiobook for this had just come out. I was waiting for it to come out. This was also a viewer recommended book, so I was very excited to get to it. It's very interesting because I didn't read Hooked because I had just heard a lot of mixed things about it, and I've read 1,000,001 Peter Pan or Hook retelling, but I was very intrigued by Scarred, which is like a Lion King retelling. And so it's a royal romance. It's also a bit historical, even though it is a fantasy-ish. It's a made-up world, I guess, because like it even has a map. There's a map in this, and it wasn't fantasy as in like there isn't any magic involved, but it had that quality a little bit. Like Emily McIntire has a note in front where she's explaining what it is to you, you know, and what you're getting into. So definitely know that. But this is a villain, like, romance. So Tristan, he's kind of that representation of Scar from The Lion King, and his older brother has a woman named Sarah that an arranged marriage is supposed to have to kind of unite their two kingdoms. Only Sarah is actually a, like, Trojan horse because she wants revenge against King Michael. I think his name's Michael, because he's responsible for the death of her father, or so she believes. Like, there's a lot of court intrigue, and again, it's kind of historical, because I think it says it starts in, like, 1910, so it definitely had, I explained it as, like, it had a bit of a, like, Downton Abbey feel, too, just for, because they still have, like, fancy dresses. Yeah, it says it's 1910, so there's that aspect to it, too, but it doesn't feel like a traditional historical in any way. This was very dark. The storyline was very interesting, and surprisingly had a very heartwarming end. Like, obviously it has an HEA, but there was a very sweet little tidbit at the end that just really, like, made it work for me. So I gave this one 4 stars, and it had a 4 on the spice rating because the trigger warnings for this were there was some blood play, the dubious consent, there was suicide of a minor character on page. Just want to let you know. I was a bit shocked by it because it just happened. And I was like, whoa, okay, no warning about that. There's torture and mutilation, and some intense things happening. But I had a better time with this than I was expecting, especially given how I read it on not such a great day, right? So then I got to read an arc of Even If It Hurts by Sam Mariano. This is going to be coming out in the bind up, this anthology called Filthy Elites. And this book, Even If It Hurts, is kind of like a prequel / lead-in book to Sam's upcoming series, The Coastal Elites. So apparently there are these two female characters specifically that we're going to see in the Coastal Elite series. And Sam said this was an opportunity to give a background to some certain characters that we will hear, like, we'll hear about the stuff that happened in this book, maybe. I don't know. Like, I don't know where it's going. So there's that. So yeah, I was told actually by Nikki, who is a channel member and a, like, book talker and Instagrammer, that there were arcs available for this if you were in Sam's Facebook group, but there was only 12 of them. And I was like, well, I haven't been a member of hers before, but I hopped in there and I applied, and she said there was only 12 arcs, and I got one of them. And I'm not mad that I did. So in that case, I'm happy about the size of my channel. And also, I've never got the chance to speak with her. Sam is someone I would very much love to have for an author interview, but I do believe she still works like a day job and still has all that going on, so it's very hard for her to, you know, do other, like, interview. What am I trying to say? It's just hard for her schedule to fit you in. But I'm pretty sure she does know who I am because I've shared the gushing that I've done for her books. But anyway, so this is a high school romance, and it's kind of a bully romance. It's very hard to explain this book, you guys. This is probably one of the most twisted books I've read that was as a romance. The hero is a villain through and through, and not even in the same complex way that like Carter is. I commented on one of Sam's posts in that Facebook group that like Carter and even Calvin still have aspects about them that can be tamed in certain ways, that like they are bad but they're good to their women, and Dare is just not quite that. Like this book, I describe it as like it felt like a domestic thriller, but there is an HEA, but then even the HEA at the end didn't fully feel like an HEA because I like didn't want the heroine to be with the hero, because I know that it's only going to bring her pain and heartache to be with this crazy person, you know, like that kind of situation. So yeah, our heroine, she is just trying to make it through her senior year. Her mother is ill, so trigger warning for a parent with cancer, and she's literally just trying to get by. She's trying to spend as much time with her mom as she can. She's trying to stay out of everything. And then she gets on the wrong side of this woman named Anae, this like bitchy girl at school, and this woman Anae sicks her boyfriend Dare on her. And now Dare and Anae, they are dating. So Sam has a note at the beginning of her book that for her, cheating is when the hero cheats on the heroine, not when they might be cheating together. And also, again, as I said, like Anae is the one who sends Dare like to her to try to like fuck up her life. So anything that happens between them, it's not like Anae doesn't know what she did. This book is it's so fucked up, okay? This is not my normal type of book I would love to read. There is nothing about the description of this that would get me excited, except the author's name is Sam Mariano, and I'm willing to follow this woman into hell based on other books I've read by her. That is my only excuse. I literally have a Sam Mariano deep dive that will have come out or is about to come out, because those are my feelings about it, okay? Those are my feelings about it. So you'll see more about why we'll follow her into hell when I have that deep dive coming out. But it was a lot. It was a lot. He's definitely a psychopath. He definitely becomes obsessed with our heroine, and what starts as like a bet for him as kind of, and it's not quite a bet either, like it's so weird. It quickly becomes he's obsessed with this woman and he's going to find out a way that he can have her. And he's literally willing to go to very, very far lengths to make it happen. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It's one where like it was hard to look away from it, but it was not comfortable, and I didn't feel great about the HEA at the end at all. But it's fascinating, and if you love Sam Mariano, you're gonna want to read this book and you're gonna be like, whoa. And I'm very interested to see what happens in Coastal Elite. So the trigger warning for this one. Okay, so I gave it 4 stars and it has 4.5 on the spice scale, because here's some of the kinks, okay? One of the triggers is somnophilia, which, you know, goes hand in hand with non-consent. There's also dubious consent. There is drugging of a character. There's a parent with an illness. There's violence, bullying, and kidnapping. So that is everything that happens in this one. I think I got it wrong. So there we go. All right. And then I have a quickie to talk about and I'm actually going to talk about it with another one. So I read Royally Raised and Royally Remembered. It's funny because I had signed up for the arc of Royally Remembered because I really love the Royal series by Emma Chase. I really do. I like modern day royal stories. And Royally Raised is a like 40-page quickie that is about like Henry and Sarah and like their daughter Jane, who is the next in line. Like she's their oldest child. And it takes place like 20 years after Royally Screwed or Royally Endowed, one of those. And it's them trying to like teach their daughter to like be a bit more humble than she is, and she reminds them a lot of their mother. So this one was quick, like it was 40 pages, but I was gonna read all of these this week, so I gave it 4 stars. There's no steam in that one. It's just some cute moments between Edward and Sarah and how much they still love each other, and it's great. And then last night, because I was trying to squeeze in a few more books, like I said, I had a pretty slow reading week for me. I read Royally Remembered, which is the one that just came out. And this one was 89 pages. And Royally Remembered was what I thought Royally Yours would be. If you remember, I read that one, I think 2 weeks ago. And it is about Edward and Lenora when they meet and have like their kind of marriage of convenience. And then it takes place up through their first year of marriage. Because we know that Edward has died because in the original like trilogy, he's passed, and it's just Queen Lenora is a widowed queen, and she's trying to teach her grandchildren how to be, you know, the kings of this land, of Westco, I think it's called. And I was very hesitant to read Royally Yours because I don't like reading books where we see the death of characters we love. Even if they've lived for 50, 60 years being married together, I don't like to read that. I like my HEA to stop. And then even if I know that that person has died, I can still imagine all those years they've had together. Sorry, itchy back. So I put off reading Royally Yours for like a year because I thought that that's what that book would be. But turns out it wasn't. It only went through their first year of marriage. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. I loved that book. Well, Royally Remembered was everything that I didn't want Royally Yours to be. In fact, it was magnified by 10 times because this entire 89-page novella is about death after death after death after death. And it goes from when they lose their infant daughter, is the first fucking scene of this, to the loss of their son and daughter-in-law, to Edward dying, and then eventually to Lenora dying and like joining him in the afterlife. And this is supposed to be like great. I hated this so bad. I was reading it last night and I cried the entire time, and I was like, why did you write this, Emma Chase? Like, why did you write this? This was agony. And it has all these high ratings because I know we love this series, but the more I was thinking about it, the more I was like, there was 5 deaths in this 89 pages, and it was the most fucking traumatic 89 pages I've read in forever, and I'm very upset that she thought this was a good idea to bind it up and put it out there. Like, it's a personal opinion. It's a personal opinion, and I'm like getting really heated about it because I just wasn't prepared. It said it was going to be these cute little scenes that we got to see, and that we would get to meet Lady Callista, who, you know, is the mother of the boys in the first series. And I should have just backed out and went away because this, like, it triggered me pretty bad. And I'm usually good at backing away from this. But yeah, it was the death of a baby, a death of their son and their daughter-in-law, the death of Edward, and the death of Lenora are all in this 89 pages. And it's supposed to be happy because at the end, you know, Edward's been waiting for her to die. She feels okay moving on because her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to be the future of Westco. And it ends with her, like, going to heaven with Edward. And they're with all these people who died. And I was like, is this Les Mis? Like, is this Les Mis? That is what I felt that I just read in 89 pages. So there's my mini rant. Sorry. I didn't mean it to be so aggressive, but I actively was. Literally, my trigger warning is death, death, and more death. I put it at 3 stars. I probably should have given it less, but I was like, I know rationally that this is a big personal trigger, and I should have backed away from it. So I gave it 3 stars. There's no steam. Let's go back to what we were reading before. Okay, so then I read a Harry Potter fanfic, I read Sex and Occlumency by Graendoll. You can find this on AO3, which is where I get all of my fanfics that I read. This one I had found, I think I found it in my friend Ash's list. I might have. Otherwise, I might have found out about it through like another fanfic. I might have heard about this. But this one is a Hermione, and it is a rape fantasy fic. So Hermione is having she has a lot of trauma and PTSD from things that have happened to her. And in the beginning of this book, she is with Ron, and she has shared with him that she would like him to like pretend to rape her, and that they could have this like CNC situation together. And he's horrified by it and breaks up with her because of it. And then a few months later, she finds out about this like dating-ish, it's not really dating service, but it's like a hookup site where you can be paired, your fantasy can be paired with, you know, the witch or wizard who can fulfill it for you, and then you can have it done. And so she fills this out, and she happens to have just had an interaction with Draco that made her like really mad, and one of his hair had ended up on her robe. So she includes this hair with her application and asks that they have someone polyjuiced as Draco so that she can be fake raped by Draco. Well, it turns out that Pansy is the proprietor of this situation. And when she sees this coming from Hermione Granger, you know, this is supposed to be anonymous, but she sees this, she thinks that Hermione might be trying to set up Draco for assault. And so she tells Draco about Hermione's fantasy, because in this world, like, there's been people who are trying to get Draco put in Azkaban. So Draco plans to confront Hermione about this, but when he goes to confront her, he ends up fake raping her instead, which Hermione is expecting someone to do this because part of the appeal is that it could be a surprise. So Draco and her fuck in like a bathroom, and then they're kind of like hooked on each other for it. So that happens. Oops, I put the wrong rating in for that one. Anyway, and then yeah, the fic goes from there. It was a shorty. It's about novella length, 180 pages. I gave it 5 stars, and it's a 4.5 on the spice scale. Trigger warnings are rape fantasy, CNC, dubious consent, and PTSD. The biggest part of the dubious consent is that Hermione has consented to someone who looks like Draco to assault her, but not actually Draco, knowing her secret that he could use against her type of thing. So, but I liked this a lot. It was exactly what I needed. It just was. All right, so then I got to read an arc for Eyes on Me by Sarah Kate. This is book 2 in the Salacious Players Club. This one is a voyeur situation, and this is also a stepbrother romance, okay? This was a very anticipated book for me. I am loving this series. The series is 2 for 2 for me so far. This one is about Garrett, who is, I think he's like 36. No, he must be 38, because our heroine is 23 and he's 15 years older than her, I believe. Maybe it's 13. So yeah, maybe he is 20. Anyway, the point being is that he became her stepbrother when she was 9 and he was 21. Does that math work? Maybe. We'll figure it out. And her dad married his mom, and so he's basically already out of, like, not basically, he was already out of the house, and he's been her stepbrother since she was little, and they've had this very antagonistic relationship. And he comes across her on a cam girl site because that's what she's doing for money now, and she really enjoys the control of getting to tell men, you know, allowing them to see certain parts of her and that dynamic. And he's doing a bit of research for his club. Also voyeuristic like interactions are basically like his only sexual interactions these days, because it keeps him at arm's length to a great degree. And when he comes across her on this campsite, he's very shocked by it. And also, very turned on, and he feels super guilty about the fact that he ends up contacting her and like paying her to like get off in front of him. They like get off together, and there is a family cabin that they usually go to monthly, or not monthly, yearly, my brain, and he hasn't gone for many years, and so he decides to go this time, and he's going to confront her about being a cam girl, but he ends up continuing to talk to her as this guy on the site, so it's a bit of a hidden identity situation too, as well as in real life, there's all of a sudden this extreme sexual tension between him that he has never noticed before, and for her, she's had a crush on him since her like teen years, but he's always seen her as like his annoying stepsister, and now he's seeing her as this very sexual being, and it kind of goes from antagonism, there is some like hate situations, and then but they also know each other really well, or do they? This has a great representation of a hero with manic depression, and what was very beautiful about this to me is that it's kind of like a reveal that he has depression. Like there are hints at it if you know the different kinds of signs of manic depression. Like it isn't the same as like wanting to stay home and hide all the time. That sometimes happens, but sometimes people who are depressed, a lot of times they are masking it very well and just going about their life. And when we have the dark moment in this book and we really find out some of the things Garrett has been through, I was so moved. I cried quite a bit. And there's a note from the author at the end that she never meant for this book to be as heavy as it was. Like this was going to be the funniest one in the series, and just be, because they have some great like banter and great like, trying to hide their sexy times from their parents and stuff like that. And it ended up, really diving into this issue. So the trigger warnings for this are depression and thoughts of suicide, attempted suicide in the past. That is not a present on page, but we do have some recollections about it. And then like the more fun side of it, there also is public sex and voyeurism happening. But I felt this was very powerful. And even though like there was a point in this book where I actually made a TikTok about it, where I was like, does a third act conflict always have to be the same thing, right? Because there's a secret Garrett's keeping. He's keeping the secret that he is both this patron of hers who's paying to watch her do her cam girl stuff, as well as he is her stepbrother. And so when she'll be pissed at her stepbrother, she will message this person. And so he's able to kind of smooth certain things over that way. But because of the mental illness and struggle that Garrett is having, it's understandable that there would be things he's not able to say in person that he feels more comfortable saying through this avatar, so that really worked for me. So I gave this 5 stars, and this one was a 4.5 on the spice scale. Then I read Topaz by Beverly Jenkins. My full review of this is on Crystal's channel. This was our book for Rake Appreciation Society this month. We had a live show on her channel on, what day was it? Thursday. I'll try to link it in the card. But this is a Western. This is only my second Beverly Jenkins, and I loved it. Loved it. This was a marriage of convenience between Kate Love, who is a ambitious young newspaper reporter, and there is Dick Wildhorse, who is a black Seminole Marshal. So he's half Indian, half Native American, or those are the same thing. Half Native American, half African American. I'm sorry. And he needs a wife, and her father owes him for a fuck up that he made, and so he kind of sort of blackmails her the rest of the way, because he's like, your father gave you to me, and she's like, well, I don't give you to me, and he's like, sorry, your father could hang if you don't, because he's a horse thief, and so you should marry me, because he really wants a family. So she agrees to go with him until such time as their first child is born, and then she could leave if she wants. This book, like, has high stakes, but also didn't at the same time. It was very fun read. It had a lot of cool things, like they're on a wagon train for a long time. There's a lot of like day-to-day life. I, again, say when we review it that this was like a year in the life of this couple, And there's a lot of fun antics that Kate gets into in this small town that they end up on, trying to make sure women have the rights that they deserve. And there are lots of like troublesome people throughout the town causing issues. And I don't know, it was a good time, but it also is a bit forgettable to me. This was only her 4th or 5th book we talk about on the show. And it's the book that she wrote right after Indigo, which I find interesting. I think it is so much lighter, and while we still are facing, you know, a bit of racism that you would see, honestly, like women's rights were a bigger part of this than like race issues, and Beverly Jenkins is just able to make it so much fun, like really. So I gave this one 4 stars, and it had a 3 on the spice scale. She always has a very swoony hero, so like Dix is very swoony, and we love him for that. Okay, moving right along. Then I read Wake My Heart by Lydia Michaels. I was going to say something else. This book is the first book in the Jasper Falls series, which is a spinoff from, I think, her McCullough series, which I haven't read. But Lydia Michaels has written a couple of my favorite books from way back when. She wrote Breaking Perfect, which actually just got a new cover, and I adore it. It's beautiful. But a bunch of her books are getting put onto audio, and so I got a audio copy of this for free, even though the first 5 books in the series are available on Kindle, like you can get them, but the audiobooks are coming out, and the first 3 audios are available already, but it is possible to sign up to review them. And because, as I have said in the beginning, I'm trying to be careful with my money right now, signing up for audio arcs is a really good way for me to get to read them, especially because there are some arcs coming out for really popular books. So it's a good way to get to listen to those. So this one was a very heavy book, but it was so good. And if you love a very emotional contemporary, and it's funny to me because I've read book 3 in this series as a Kindle arc. Like I read a ebook arc of Pining for You, which was an age gap employer romance. It was a nanny and the mayor type of thing, which was really good. But this one was a young widow. So she's actually the same age as me. She's 29 and her husband died 2 years ago, and she is stuck in place. Literally and figuratively. She lives in their house. Every morning she goes to his gravesite and has a cup of coffee with him, and she drags herself through her day. And then she gets a new neighbor named Ryan, who is, you know, part of the big Irish families in town, and he is this sunshine, and he's from a big boisterous family, and his rebellion is living in this house a few miles away from his family is his big rebellion to like put some space between them. He works for the family company, 2 family companies, and he just wants a bit of his own space, and he's single, and all his family is trying to do is to get him to have a family. And he actually graduated with Maggie and her husband, who had died because they were the same age. They had been together since she was 15. Her dead husband was the only one in her life. And Ryan first starts out just wanting to be her friend, but he's very intrigued by her. He quickly is starting to have feelings for her. He becomes her friend. He's trying to draw her out of her shell, and Maggie is very much like, I want my life to stay how it is. Or does she? This book also has her starting to go to a counselor in this book, and I really appreciated that. I love when I see counseling represented in a good way. Of course, her counselor is actually like Ryan's brother-in-law. So the whole series is very interesting that way. So this was a slow burn, you know, widowed heroine, small town, friends to lovers, and a grumpy sunshine, although I would more call her like grief-stricken, and the hero is Sunshine. And he is so precious with her and patient and willing to wait because he knows that she's meant for him, and he's willing to take his time. He's like, we have all the time in the world, and that does me. So parts of this were agony, though. I want to be real. The trigger warning for grief and loss of a spouse is real in this one. It is, she is suffering with it. Okay, she's suffering under this heavy depression and this blanket of it. but it was so beautiful watching it work out. And I know a lot of my viewers, you're more okay with the angst and that than me. And I think a lot of you will enjoy this more than I did. Like, for real, I think you'll enjoy this a lot more than I did. So I ended up with 4.5 stars for it. And it's only a 2 on the spice scale because sex is definitely not the main focus in this, but it's beautiful. So yeah, the trigger warnings are, as said, grief and loss of a spouse. Then I read 5 Rounds by Nikki Castle. This was a recommendation I saw from Tori from Novel Life, as well as I saw Jessica from Peace Love Books reading it, and I was really intrigued by it. This was on my TBR for this month. This is a sports romance. It's an MMA fighter romance. They both are fighters, which is fantastic. There's lots of jujitsu that gets done in this book, and I'm actually really interested by jujitsu. I love watching the Gracie's YouTube channel and learning some of their like self-defense for like women in there. I really enjoy Eve and Renner. I like it a lot. So they are enemies, and they end up having to share an apartment when she gets kicked out of where she lives, and she isn't able to get into her new apartment for 3 weeks. And so I think it's her brother or her best friend, I'm not sure which one it is, he is going to be gone. And so he's like, you can stay in my place. Well, it happens to be with her enemy, Tristan. Our heroine's name is Remy. And they have this like very antagonistic relationship, but now they're in a forced proximity. And this ends up being a lot of hate fucking between them, mixed in with these beautiful conversations where they're getting to know each other and grow. And I had a great time with this one. The third act conflict involves overhearing something that someone shouldn't have overheard, and it brought this to a grinding halt for me. Unfortunately. I still gave it 4 stars. The hero was so articulate with how he was feeling about her, and even though this thing that gets overheard is really sucky, I was just very disappointed that he didn't get what was going on. Like, I feel like it should have been pretty obvious based on what the heroine said to him, what she overheard, and it went on for way too long, which bothers me. But I gave it 4 stars, and it's 4 on the spice scale. Tristan is a dirty talker. Remy is a dirty girl. She wants all the good stuff between them, and it has the kind of hate fucking that I really do like, where it's like, you're a dirty girl, I'm gonna give it to you, and I like it. Then I read The Heir Apparent's Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells. This was an anticipated read for me. I only just read the Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate earlier this month, which was a TBR pick for me. And then this one came out, and I read it in like over a day. Like, I started when it came out and I finished it last night. This is about Caddock, who we heard mentioned in the first book. He is the heir apparent of the Quarry or the Moon Pack. I think it's the Moon Pack. I can keep them straight. So we get to meet another pack in this book, which is very interesting because it is called the 5 Pack series. So we get to meet this other pack and see what they're all about, you know? The thing that's so hard about this series for me, like, really, so this one also, they're very young. Our heroine is coming into her heat more at a normal time. You know, if you've read the first book, you know that heroine had her heat suppressed because of reasons. So she doesn't come into it until she's in her late 20s, which is why they think there's something wrong with her. And this heroine, she's coming about it at 18. The hero is 19. They're basically going to like a wolf school / college. They're like in school basically. So our heroine, when her heat presents itself, it's very obvious that it is for Caddock. Our heroine's name is Rosie. There's the same kind of thing that happens in the first one where she is just ridiculed and bullied. And in this pack, there are wolves that are called scavengers that live on the outskirts and are treated very poorly, and they sometimes have to whore themselves for food. And if a upper class wolf, they're called the knobs, you know, if they mate with a scavenger, they will often just use their scavenger mate as a fuck toy. Come in them, get them pregnant, have them having pups, and go back to high society. And it's very depressing. And there was parts of this book where I don't know how Kate does it, because I literally was in agony for so much of this book. And the thing that made it a little better, I think, was that this hero, there's a bit of rejection happening, but there's so much going on under the surface with Caddick. Like, he has a heavy, heavy weight on him, and he's very young. You know, he's only 19. He's being told certain things by his family, and there are certain needs that they have and need him to fulfill, and he just feels very overwhelmed by them. And when this mate gets dropped in his lap, he's like, I cannot protect her or take care of her. Like, this can't happen. And of course, their wolves have something else to say about it. So this one, yes, there's a grovel in this one as well, because when you have the rejected mate, like, you need the grovel, but there's more of our hero realizing what's important, and he doesn't grovel in the same way Killian does. He just shows up, and he keeps showing up and proving that he will be there. And the resolution to this book, it was great. So there was a point in this one where I was like, this hurts so bad. Like, Kate really needs to pull this off for me. And I was maybe going to give this a 3-star at one point, because the agony, like, you guys know, I need the pain versus the payoff equation to be the way I want it to be. But the last 20% of this book, which again, it's not all about a grovel. There is other things that are just coming to light with it. I was so impressed, and I loved the hero so much for the decisions he was making and, like, the choices he was making. I was like, So I ended up giving it a 4.5 star. I had to knock that half, because, as I said, I can only handle so much agony. And also, again, this is a series that has so little spice, and I'm so sad by that. Like, I'm really sad, because Kate C. Wells writes great spice, and I just gotta get used to it. The authors don't owe me sex. So this one only had a 1.5 on my spice scale, which made me sad. The trigger warnings are bullying, violence, and gore, and I also said the angst is very high. So put that out there. And then the last one that I fit in last night, we'll just talk real quick because I didn't enjoy it that much, was Don't Fight It by Samantha Cole. So, quick story. The weekend that I got fired, I was going to do this Easter reading vlog where there were these 4 books. I put up a poll. I had everyone vote on them, and there was 4 books that got picked, and I was going to do a reading vlog. And then everything happened, and I just needed to read for comfort and not do this. But I still wanted to read the books that you guys voted on. I just wasn't going to be able to vlog it now. So Don't Fight It was a book that won. So this is a menage. This is an MMF. This is this couple, these 2 men, Tuck and Shane, who 2 years ago they lost their wife. They were menaged together. They have a child named Ariana? No. Yes. And they own a ranch. And they live in the middle of, not in the middle of nowhere, but in a small town. And Paige has had some crappy stuff go down with her ex-husband, and so she gets hired to be their house manager / nanny for their daughter. And they decide they're ready to love again, and they make a menage with her. This is the second book this month that I read that's a menage where the men are still together and they lost their wife, and they have a child with it. And they meet this new woman, and they immediately decide she's meant to be with them. And I don't like it. I don't like my menages without deep emotional connection. And this one, it was definitely better than that previous one I read. But they still are just like, I'm falling in love with this woman. And I'm like, fuck off. No, you're not. And I don't like it. I don't like an author telling me that they're in love with each other. Don't believe it. So I gave it 3 stars, and it was 3 on the spice rating. The trigger warnings were loss of a spouse, and there's a bit of, homophobia from the people in the town. Not too much. So, anyway, okay, those are the books that I read this week. This was supposed to be a short video, but I still can't do it. Even when I read not as many books, I still find a way to ramble. Thank you so much to everyone for all the support I've been getting. Thank you to the new channel members for helping me realize my dream. I cannot wait. Yeah, I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, all that stuff. Check out my playlist. I have a ton of recommendation videos for you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.